Hey, welcome to the session, Organizing a Mass Base of People Hurt by Private Insurance to Win Medicare for All. Thanks for joining us, and to start with some introductions, I'm Aija Nemer-Aanerud. I'm the Healthcare for All campaign director at People's Action. I use they, them pronouns. People's Action, a little bit about us. We're a network of 40 community organizations across 35 states. We fight for economic, racial, and environmental justice. The roots of our organization go back 40 years. Name an issue, we probably organized on it at some point. We're currently most focused on winning healthcare for all, combating the war on drugs and addressing the overdose crisis, winning a homes guarantee, and making sure that we're putting people and planet first. And the power that we build every day is grounded in and because of our people-powered organizations that we work with coast to coast. We've got two folks from those organizations joining us today, and that's Jaime and Eleana. I'll pass it over to Jaime first.
My name is Jaime Izaguirre. I use he, him pronouns, and I am Iowa Citizens for Community Improvement's healthcare organizer. Iowa CCI has been around since 1975, and similar to PA, we've organized on a number of issues. Right now, we're focusing on healthcare, racial justice, factory farms, and our environment. I'll pass it off to Eleana.
Hi, y'all. My name is Eleana. I use she and her pronouns, and I'm the mental health justice organizer at Northside in Chicago. We organize with people on the north side of Chicago to build power to change and impacts the policies that impact all of our lives related to housing, mental health care, economic justice, and police accountability. Very excited to be here with y'all, and I'll pass it back to Aija.
Cool. Excited to be here with y'all. Talk to you a lot, but happy to talk with y'all in this setting. So this topic that we're going to be doing today, we're going to be talking about is, we all know that we need more power if we're going to contend with the corporate healthcare industry. Right now, they're the ones that are calling the shots in Washington and in many of our home states when it comes to what kind of healthcare we can get, what kind of healthcare policy. And so at People's Action, we're building a campaign called Care Over Cost. And this campaign is to organize people across the country who don't yet necessarily care about Medicare for all, but are harmed by our current system of private insurance. So in this plenary, we're going to be talking about what it means and looks like to organize and politicize people who are suffering under our current system and how we get to the people power that we need to actually win Medicare for all. We'll start off by talking first a little bit about why this topic is important to us. I'll pass it to Eleana first.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Aija. What to say? So many things. I think the issue of winning Medicare for all is deeply important to me because I'm a person who has been harmed by our current healthcare system. My family members have been harmed. I have been harmed by not being able to access both the therapy and medication that I've needed to take care of myself. And right now, it's pretty clear to me that we don't have the power and political will that we need to pass and win Medicare for all. And so I'm committed to building a base of people who are directly impacted, a base of queer people, Black and brown people, folks who have been left out of this conversation, so that we can actually win and pass this massive policy that will make it easier for me to live and easier for my community to live. Jaime, what about you?
Yeah, I think this conversation is really important because, like Aija and Eleana said, we do not have the power we need to currently win Medicare for all and fight back against the health insurers, the pharmaceutical companies, and the healthcare profiteers, right? Coming from a rural area, profit-based healthcare has impacted my family and my community to disastrous levels. And so I'm in this fight to win a healthcare system that's not based on profit, right? And one that's centered on people.
Thank you. Thank you both. Same. We all have healthcare stories. I think almost everybody in this country has been hurt by, negatively impacted by private insurance in the way that our health is treated like a commodity rather than something that we just deserve. So excited to be here digging in with y'all on this. I'm going to start by going over a little bit just more about this campaign, and then I'll ask you two to kind of put more flesh on the bone here. So this campaign is called Care Over Cost, and basically the theory is organizing the unorganized to build a base that's capable of winning Medicare for all, as well as to delegitimize the health insurance industry and reduce their power. Because those are the two pieces of the equation, right? We need more power. We also need the corporations to have less power. And we're trying to do both with this campaign. So the basics of it are, one, we're finding people who are hurt by private insurance. That's should be easy enough, but it's harder to get people to kind of realize that they've been hurt by it in a way that's even worth talking about. We're going to get into that a little more. Especially finding people who are experiencing claims denials. Y'all are probably familiar with that phenomenon, but basically it is when somebody needs care, their doctor says they need care, the insurance says they won't pay for it. And that happens a lot. Sometimes it happens when it was never going to be covered by their policy, but also sometimes it happens when the care was supposed to be covered by their policy and the insurance company isn't paying anyway. So we're especially looking for people with those types of claims denials, and we're going to work with them to appeal them, build a base that's strong to fight the appeal, and develop them as leaders, publicize the claims denials, and really escalate on the private insurers. So that could look like driving in a bunch of calls to the insurance company with people in our bases talking about like, hey, we demand that you overturn this person's claims denial and get them the care they need. Could look like showing up at their office, doing direct actions, submitting letters to the editors and op-eds to local papers, talking to members of Congress about this. There's lots of different tactics we can use, but the theme is really making the insurance companies uncomfortable about how much negative attention they're getting, really turning up the heat on them so that we can get some relief for some people, get some of these claims denials reversed, while also revealing just what a failure private insurance really is. So that's kind of the gist of the campaign. We're pairing it with a Patients Over Profits pledge that many other organizations at this conference are working on. So saying, here's how private insurance is terrible, and you also should not take their political contributions if you're running for office, because then you're going to be beholden to them. So that's kind of the gist of the campaign. And I think, Eleana, I'm going to pass it to you to add a little bit more on strategy or kind of whatever you feel like adding in here.
Yeah, that hypes me up just to hear about it. I think one of the pieces about this campaign that feels most exciting and energizing to me is the strategy that we've crafted around and behind this campaign, right? We are clear, like all of us have said, that we currently don't hold enough power to pass this healthcare system that we know we desperately need. We're also clear that one of the biggest barriers to winning Medicare for all, a universal healthcare system, is the for-profit health insurance system and companies, right? They are actively lobbying against policies like actively lobbying against Medicare for all, and have a very crafty narrative and messaging about how essential they are within our system. So I see this campaign as a very strategic place for us to be in this moment, because like Aija has been naming, we are both building the base of people who are directly impacted by this horrific system, while also toxifying and eroding the power that for-profit healthcare industry has, right? And kind of doing those things simultaneously, which again, to me feels deeply exciting, especially thinking about Medicare for all as this really massive, hard, and big policy to pass, right? Where do we start? How do we continue the work that's been happening for decades? And I think, yeah, the strategy behind this campaign feels like this is one big and essential stepping stone to actually getting us into a position where we can push this policy forward. Jaime, how's this been showing up in your organizing?
Yeah, I think this campaign for me and for CCI shows a need to like educate the public on like their insurance companies, right? And like the motivations behind their actions. I think a lot of people don't connect the fact that like their policies and their plans are they're decided by insurance companies based off of how much it's going to cost them, right? And I think a lot of people have the idea that their insurance company is bad, right? A lot of people hold that like vague notion in their head, but like there's a disconnect between the political processes of like how insurance companies like do what they do, and then also how they decide internally what their plans are going to look like. And so we need to show insurance companies for what they are: profit motivated middlemen, right? Denials are not just denials. Yeah.
Yeah. They're a moral failing, right? Yeah. Were you going to say something, Eleana?
Yeah, I think just also to what Jaime is naming of kind of how people talk about insurance, right? And how people understand their relationship with insurance has been really interesting to learn more about within our base and community here in Chicago. I think before we started this campaign, we went through a process of setting up meetings with local community stakeholders, social service organizations, religious congregations, to talk to our community and see what are the issues that you're facing with your insurance company, with how you navigate insurance, with how insurance cares for you. And the thing that we heard over and over again is, I'm being denied care, I'm being denied medication. I got this letter from my insurance corporation that I don't really understand, but it's saying that I can't get this medication that my doctor prescribed to me last week. And so all of these experiences are happening on a very individual level. And like Jaime was saying, right, folks have this idea that like, oh, this isn't working for me, but this is a me problem, or this is something that I just have to deal with by myself. So I think through having these conversations, even just kind of these first meetings that we had with community stakeholders and leaders, folks were able to kind of come out of their individual experience and see and recognize that like, oh, my neighbors also got the same letter. My neighbors also have gone into debt because they couldn't afford to pay out of pocket for this procedure that was essential to their health and well-being. And so I see this kind of, the forming of this campaign was really organic, right? Really seeing and having conversations and identifying a need within folks related to claim denials. And what's been exciting and interesting about this campaign is how these conversations have led to people seeing this problem as more of a systemic issue and more as a collective issue rather than an individual experience that we have to keep private. I'm curious, Jaime, have you seen that in your organizing, or what are you seeing on the ground at CCI with the folks that you're starting to organize?
Yeah, I think I would agree with that a lot. I think like naming the fact that it's like it's been hard to like talk to people about care that they've been denied, right? Like
Yeah.
and I think a large part of why that is because like healthcare is treated as such like a personal and individual thing. And insurance companies treat it in that way too, but to their own advantage, right? Because when these things are in the shadows, or they're like it's just an individual level, as you've said, then like we found that it's like harder to address a problem when you don't know that it exists, right? And so yeah, I think a lot of people that we've got in contact with that have been denied a claim are relieved to know that there is like actions being taken on this, and that there's some sort of outlet or resource that they can turn to when their insurance company has wrongly denied their claim. And I think on top of that, it's like it's not an individual issue. I feel like a large portion of health insurance denials are oftentimes just because the health insurance company misfiled claims, and like people aren't appealing those, and it's less than 1% of people that are denied a claim appeal that. And when they do, they find that like it's because of misfiled claims or some internal insurance process that just shows like how administratively bloated and like ineffective they are at what they're supposed to be doing. And large part, you could argue, is because they're not focused on providing care, right? It's because they're focused on the profits. And when those things don't align, it's not prioritized internally.
That's the kicker.
I think with all of this, it's making me think about what it actually looks like to organize a base of people around this, because you're talking about some of your experiences of how emotional it sounds like this can be for folks, and transformative. Yeah, wondering maybe, Eleana, if you could speak to that a little bit first, and also maybe speak to that meeting. I know you've been having story share meetings. I'd love to hear what those have been like too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the primary questions that we asked ourselves is like, how do we get in touch with folks who have been impacted by insurance denials? Which is kind of a false question, right? Because like we said, it's almost all of us. It's almost everyone, but getting folks to identify that that's been a problem that they've faced has been kind of one of the challenges of base building. So at One Northside, we, like I said, are located on the north side of Chicago. What we've been doing is doing a combination of street canvassing, literally just talking to folks on the street saying, hey, have you had to fight with your insurance? Honestly, most folks say no, right? Again, we have this very deeply held idea that like this is just how the system works. I just get denied because that's just what happens with this insurance system. And so what I have found and what our team has found has been really helpful is to share our own experiences and stories as a way to kind of model and frame for folks. This actually is a problem that you can speak on this and that this isn't just a normal thing. So I'll share when I'm canvassing that over this past summer, I went to go pick up a medication that I was told was covered by my insurance and found out it was $100 per month, which I just couldn't afford. So I just didn't pick it up and had to renegotiate with my psychiatrist about a lower cost medication. And so when I share that story, folks will be like, "Oh, that's actually happened to me," or "That happened to my friend," or "My cousin's going through something like that," right? And that really opens up the conversation. So we've seen how storytelling has been a really important part of base building. We've organized a few community meetings on Zoom. We're hoping to have a few in person as the weather gets better and COVID stays down. Fingers crossed. Where we really just open up and create a space for folks to share what their experience has been with insurance and also provide a little bit of political education around the fact that Jaime said less than 1% of claims denials are appealed. Why is that? Why do we exist in a system that is so heavily bureaucratic that we can't even navigate to figure out how to get the care that we need? And so from these spaces, we're cultivating a base of people who have been impacted, who are sharing stories, building trust with one another. And once we identify the folks that we want to go through the kind of public process of appealing a claim and putting pressure on insurance corporations, Blue Cross Blue Shield specifically, we'll have a base of people who can come along with us and can show up to those actions, make those calls, build that public pressure on these organizations. So that's what it's looked like so far in Chicago. I'm curious what it's looked like in Iowa.
But before that, actually, because I was in one of those story share meetings, and I was like almost crying angry at hearing the stories that people were experiencing. But I also feel like there was something beautiful about people realizing that this private shame that they've been told they have to internalize, like, is actually a collective problem. I don't know if either of you can speak to that a little bit. I feel like that's worth drawing out here too.
Yeah. When we were mostly doing outreach right now, leading up to an eventual story sharing meeting. But again, modeling is like a big thing in this work, because people, when you ask people if they've had to fight their insurance or if they've been denied a claim, they don't. It's not always the first thing that comes to mind. You know what I mean? It's just something. It's an experience that hasn't been processed, or it hasn't been politicized. Yeah, I think oftentimes for members of Iowa CCI and for people that we've been interacting with claims appeals, it is it's mind blowing, right? That that for people that someone is organizing around this or taking action, because they don't view it as a problem, a mass problem, right? They think it's just an individual circumstance or a decision from an insurer. So yeah, I think what that's kind of showing up as is like when people do realize they have been wrongly denied a claim, or that they've been subjected to some shady insurer practice, it's anger, right? Because it's like that's a logical, emotional reaction to knowing that you've been done wrong by, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and what like as y'all have started, because like you named, we're in the outreach phase of this campaign right now. What have y'all been learning about how we build a base of people that we need to if we're going to win Medicare for all? Like as you've been starting this. Maybe Jaime first, if you have thoughts to start with.
Yeah. Well, I think the thing that has mostly come up is that like people have a very often have a very relaxed feeling about their claim denials. They're like, oh, it kind of sucked that that happened, but like, or like my policy didn't cover this, so it's like, oh, like, what are you gonna do? And it's like, okay, yeah, you're taught to feel that way because something might not have aligned with your policy, or you didn't go to the right doctor or something like that. But I found that it's not a far step for most people, right? And it's just like someone needs to be there to guide them through this process, to realize that like the insurance company is like at every step advocating for their own wallets, right? Both in the political and legislative arena, and then also in like the individual insurer case, right? Yeah, I think one of the greatest hopes for this campaign, and I think something that like it's keep being kept in mind at every step of the way, is that like this is a political issue, right? Claims denials, and it's one that if organized and talked about in the right way, we can make the connection for people that it is a political issue, and that our electeds are responsible for it by refusing to take action and hold the insurers accountable.
I will second that. I think something to add that I have learned through kind of the base building outreach process of this campaign that might seem a bit counterintuitive is that this stuff takes time, right? Building deep relationships with people who have been impacted and harmed by this current system and buying them into the idea and plan and vision that we have to change that, which is a long-term plan, right? We know that we're not going to win Medicare for all in the next few years. Takes time and investment and development and care and intentionality. And I see this campaign as a way to contain lots of that, right? While still doing something very active to try and mitigate what people are living in this moment, right? We are building relationships with people who need access to care, medication right now. And we, through this campaign, are getting that for them, right? Are building the power that we need to get that for them, while also building and creating this long-term vision for how we can shift this completely and how we can make sure that no one has this problem in the future. And I have been surprised at, that takes time, right? It takes investment. And I think, especially thinking about a long-term policy and campaign to win Medicare for all, that time is needed and necessary. And I think our movement and our organizations are starting to understand that and kind of shift towards that in a way where we can actually cultivate a base that is sustainable, a base of people who will continue to be on this fight with us, not just for the phone bank, but for the whole thing, for the meeting with folks in DC, for the hearing at Medicare for All in the Senate. So I think that I feel deeply appreciative to be working on a campaign that sustains that and that integrates that as a key part of the movement and base that we're building.
Yeah. I think to add on to what Eleana is saying, is like we need to change the hearts and minds of people, right? There's this statistic that like some 70% of people support Medicare for all or like a similar universal healthcare system. And the disconnect for a lot of people is in the values they hold because that's what they were taught, right? In the United States, we're taught that care is a commodity, right? That our health is a commodity. That like if we don't have enough money to pay for something, that's because we failed personally, right? I've seen this happen to family members personally that have taken that dominant narrative and the things that they were told about themselves, and it drove them to depths that they couldn't recover from, right? And I think with this campaign at its heart, and it's like the reason why I really enjoy this campaign and the work that we're doing, is that our goal ultimately is to tell people that they're worthy of living, right? They're worthy of care, they're worthy of medication that they need to live, to be happy, to live a full life. And if you care about Medicare for all, I mean, that's basically the gist of what we're organizing around. Providing happy, healthy, and full lives to people in our communities. Yeah, and then it's an additional pretty awesome point that we're fighting back against the people that are doing the misdeeds to us and like advocating against the system of care that we need.
For sure. This is awesome. I feel like a lot's coming out for me to think about, for our audience to think about. There's a couple more questions here. One, as you're talking, I'm thinking about like the tactics you're using to reach people, the conversations you're having with people that you're finding, as well as just like, are these the same people that you've been organizing with for Medicare for All in the past? Like, what are the differences between this organizing and kind of other Medicare for All organizing you've done?
I suppose I can go first. Yeah, I think our base looks different. I recall one text conversation where someone opened by saying, I don't think people deserve free healthcare. And moving past that, right, I was like, oh, that's cool, like good for you. But like, let's talk about like the survey, right? And it's like, how do you feel about your insurance company? Like we'll get to the Medicare for all portion of the conversation down the line. But first, I'm like interested in like helping you get the care you need. And so it's like a different starting point for a lot of people, right? And like I said, like we're building up Medicare for all supporters with this campaign. We're finding the people that are deeply impacted and the people that are closest to the issue, so that way we can bring them closest to the solution, right? And that's like a CCI saying: the people closest to the issue or the problem are the closest to the solution. Yeah, so I think oftentimes it's just a matter of like getting in front of them, right? And like making those connections of like what actually is a denial of care. You know what I mean? What is a claim denial? What is like a shady insurer practice? It's like, oh, okay, like you said that as a matter of fact, but it's like what I'm hearing is the insurance company refused to pay for something unjustly. And so yeah, it's definitely different, but it's needed work, right? We need to build up people that are like loud and proud supporters of Medicare for all that can build up the power that we need to win Medicare for all.
Yeah, that's kind of what I've seen as well. I feel like this campaign does a great job of reaching kind of like middle of the road folks who have been impacted by our healthcare system, but maybe, like Jaime says, haven't been able to fully make that connection to Medicare for all, so to say, right? And kind of stuck in this middle place of like, this isn't great for me, but I don't know what's going on with other people, and I don't know what I can do as an individual to change this for myself. Which I think is the exact base that we need to be organizing right now, right? And these are folks that we have been in touch with through text, like Jaime said, doing text banks every week, canvassing in our neighborhoods, going, I think, especially to institutions where people gather, like religious congregations, social service organizations. As the weather gets warmer here in Chicago, we're going to be canvassing at street festivals and really any place where there are people, right? There are people who have been impacted by the insurance system and probably think that there's nothing they can do about it, right? And I think especially where we know that our healthcare system and our healthcare movement has been led by a bunch of white people, right? And so I think that's a specific angle that we're looking at as well with this campaign, and with who we're building relationships with and how we're building our base. We definitely need middle class white folks in our base, and also want to prioritize and uplift those of us who our stories aren't often shared and aren't often talked about. So that's kind of been the way that we've been approaching and have started to build the base that we'll need to take on these big corporations in the next few months.
Awesome. Any final takeaways y'all have that you want to leave folks with?
Join us. We need you. I'm curious, how have you been hurt and harmed by insurance? How do you talk about that to your people, to your community, to your neighbors? I think the more that we talk about this, that we build relationships related to this, the more that we can see this as a problem that we have tools and resources to attack and combat, and build power through that. So join us. We're around, get involved. We want you, we need you.
Nobody likes their insurance. Let's give them a way to organize against them, right? It's like it really is that simple. And we talk about that all the time in Medicare for All spaces, right? Nobody likes their insurance.
Or they like it because they haven't had to use it.
Exactly. And so I think the other great thing that this campaign offers is like it's a jumping on point. You know what I mean? Because in the regular healthcare for all fight, right, it's usually talking to voters about Medicare for all, or it's elections based. But like this is a campaign to provide people with immediate relief while like attacking the power base of insurers. And so, people need that jumping on point.
Great. I think, y'all said it. My takeaways are similar. We need more power, and we need to be organizing people who are not already in the fight to get there. And we need to be highlighting how bad private insurance really is, and really making it toxic for our elected officials to be seen supporting it. So excited to do that. Thank y'all for watching. We have 5 workshops happening at the summit or at the conference this weekend. So please check those out. 3 on care over cost, this campaign that we were talking about, and 2 on deep canvassing, which is a tactic for moving people based on stories, kind of similar to what we were talking about here. So hope to see you in those, and thank you.